Welcome back, friends. So a partial list of flower and marrying connections. First, as always, we will define our terms. So we are going to be attending to legends. A legend defined in these generations gone by, and as used in this book, is for a lesson or reading. We moderns tend to hear the word legend, and if we don't think that they're out and out lies, they're just they're untruthful. There's some sort of deceit and a negative.
Right, at best, a make-believe fairy tale or something.
At best. But that's not how the medieval people saw the legend. They saw them as a way of instilling lessons or readings. And the author uses that term, gardens, legends, and meditations. So her colors, the colors of the flowers that would evoke thoughts of Our Lady, would tend to be white and blue. Flowers of this hue would be tied to the Blessed Mother. The iris, it's the shape of a sword. It points to the sword of sorrow. And of course, the fleur-de-lis has that sword. The iris is the sorrow of Our Lady. Lily would be one of chastity, and we'll come back to the lily. Violet, humility, present at the Annunciation, according to the Proto-Evangelium of St. James. Rose, and depending on the rose's color, could denote martyrdom or love, heavenly joy. A white rose would be virginity, from the Song of Solomon 2:1. I am a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys. Marigold, it was a legend that Mary used golden petals as coins. The columbine, and we'll come back to the columbine because it is, well, maybe we'll speak of it here. It's Our Lady's shoes. It's Mary's foot stepped on the way to visit Elizabeth. And if I remember this flower correctly, it's not till the flower itself drops, right, and is no longer attached to the plant that it actually looks like a shoe. And there was just another one of those moments of these people really attending to this cycle. And because at first you go, well, I don't see it, and then the modern kind of keeps going on, right? So Francis of Assisi, 1182 to 1226. He was a lover of nature, and he was the originator of many of these legends, was Francis of Assisi. Fragrant herbs would denote her, so some aspects would denote her spiritual sweetness, or the lemon balm, Sweet Mary. Soothing and healing herbs would denote her beautiful mercy. Bitter and sour herbs would remind one of her bitter sorrows, such as dandelion or sorrel, if it had an acrid or pungent taste.
It's interesting to configure the names. Well, like columbine was just known as, right, Our Lady's slipper.
It was.
And before, did you say that the violet? How did you say that fit into the Proto-Evangelium?
That it was Mary's foot stepped on the violets on the way to visit Elizabeth.
Oh, very lovely.
And we'll come back to we'll come back to violets, because that's very much tied to the humility of Our Lady. So then there would be feast days of Our Lady. Snowdrops, the Feast of Purification, because that's about when they come out, February the 2nd. The Assumption, lily, um, and of course for August 15th. In fact, there was a legend, tradition handed down from the 2nd century, showing that when Thomas asked to see the body and the tomb was open, that roses and lilies filled the space where they expect to see the body of Our Lady. The Italian aster blooms around September 8th, so it's considered Our Lady's birthday flower. And of course,
blue?
Pardon?
Is an aster blue?
Yes, I think they are. I think they are. And of course, roses and violets.
Yeah, and you think of how many just miracles, that flowers blooming when they shouldn't, flowers appearing when needed, different things like that. Wasn't that the case with Elizabeth of Hungary, and then with obviously Blessed Juan Diego? I think both, had a miracle where they, Elizabeth of Hungary was actually carrying food, right? And then when she opened her cloak, it was roses, and then of course Saint Juan Diego, the beautiful tilma, right, with the Castilian roses. And I'm sure that if we studied more hagiography, there would probably be even more floral indicators of Our Lady's presence.
Absolutely, and I know, and I can't name the mystics right offhand, so I'd have to do the research. But to me, it's just common knowledge that one smells roses, right, for example, one my mind turns to Our Lady, to Our Lady. I know when we were a personal experience with the Carmelite sisters. So Carmelite is, and we'll get into Therese here in a little bit, have a tremendous fondness for gardens and well-cared gardens, and gardens that evoke deeper thoughts. And they really liked this one convent had salvia that was red and white. And instead of calling those salvias hot lips, they would think of Divine Mercy as the two rays of light, the red and the white.
Right.
And that garden had a serenity of peace. And so I know every time when I see them in my gardens, because I have these types of salvias, I prefer to think of them as the love of my Lord, right? As both in the red and the white rays of light. And the beautiful nuns who are so gracious to open up their gardens to my daughter and myself.
Yeah, it's unfortunate how far away from, shall we say, the earth most people are now in modern times. I read a kind of a sad little, story, just in terms of the loss of knowledge, is that they've found that most modern school children, probably below the age of 12th grade, cannot even name the most 5 common leaf shapes for trees, right? And then to be able to pick out a flower, I mean, the best that they would do, the rose would be basically one of the only flowers that they could actually still name. Even daisies and very common flowers have gone out of the lexicon of most of the kids' natural knowledge. They're really, as we move more and more into kind of a non-tangible world, right, of social media and even conversations like this, which is it's pleasant for you and I because we have a long memory of knowing one another in person, right, which brings it's a reflection of those times, right? But as we lose that, if you and I had never had that moment, right, these would not have as much value to us. And I think that we're seeing the same thing in terms of the kids' lack of real awareness. It's one thing to see a picture of something, but to pick up and hold to hold a flower, right, is a very different lived experience, shall we say, than seeing it in the name of the book. And I think that that's actually one of the sorrows, maybe, of the kind of, I don't know, scientific, modernist scientific knowledge that was started to be given to us about flowers, is that we became less enamored of the flower, right, of itself, and more tied to its science, right, and what it could tell us. I don't know. I mean, does that make sense? Like we're losing the beauty of the real and the naming of it, right? When you called something Our Lady's Slippers, you had an immediate, intimate entrance into a meditative moment, right? But when you call it Columbine,
Right.
there's no drama, there's no poetry, there's no imagination.
Lips. I mean, there's no. Right. Right. Absolutely. We'll stop there. We're going to pick up this train of thought because I think I'd like to explore something if it's possible. Till the next time, my friends. Fides.